Hello there guys, Retro Roberino here. So in this video I will talk about why I will buy a 90s car very soon. So basically I always loved 90s cars. It all started with my uncle. Basically he would take us on road trips in his 1994 Ford Mondeo when I was younger. And we would drive across the entire country in his 1994 Ford Mondeo. And I loved that car, and I actually got to drive it recently myself. It was amazing. And, I noticed very soon in my life that, I really, really like 90s cars. And, I have driven a lot of cars in the past few months. I have driven newer cars, and I also drove a lot of 90s cars. And I noticed every time that when I drove a newer car that happened to be a couple of years old, from 2018 or whatever, I noticed that the car is sort of interesting in the moment for like an hour, and then it eventually fades off pretty quickly. The novelty fades off very quickly with newer cars, because newer cars, in my opinion, don't have any soul. They don't have any, I don't have any emotional attachment to newer cars. And the reason why is because newer cars are bland and boring, in my opinion. The engine sounds are barely noticeable in newer cars. They are too quiet. You can't feel them. You can't feel the engine working. You can't really feel the engine running. And I mean, it depends on what kind of car you drive, but in general, newer cars, you don't have that analog feel to newer cars. I remember when I drove my my uncle's 1994 Ford Mondeo, you could really feel the road through the steering wheel, and you could feel when you, pushed down the gas pedal or the brake pedal. You could feel it because it felt really analog and you were connected to the car. The sound was amazing. The 4-speed automatic torque converter transmission felt amazing. Excuse me. It felt amazing because the transmission, you could feel the transmission working. In newer cars, you don't have that. When you have a double clutch DSG transmission or whatever, they are economical technically, they are quick, but they are boring and bland. And, I just don't feel any emotional attachment to newer cars. Newer cars to me are just objects that you use for a couple of years and then throw away. But with 90s cars, whenever I see a 90s car, or I get in a 90s car, or I drive a 90s car, I feel right at home. I feel one with the car. I feel like I'm time traveling back to a better time, and I just feel relaxed and at home. And the nostalgia, it hits different with a 90s car. And they feel amazing, you can feel the engine working, you can feel the transmission working, you can feel everything, the steering, you can feel the road, you can feel the pedals better. It just feels better, it feels analog and raw, and you don't have tiny engines that don't sound like anything like in newer cars. You have, decent sized engines, you have proper you have proper 4-cylinder engines, you have proper 6-cylinder engines, and so on and so forth. And these engines, you can feel them, you can hear them, because they used to build them differently back then. A 6-cylinder or even a 4-cylinder engine today is not the same as it was, back in the 90s. And you can really feel that, trust me. I have driven a couple of newer cars last year, in the past few months, and I got bored about an hour of driving the car, It's just in the moment you think, yeah, this is kind of practical and cool and modern, but then you get out of the car and you sleep, and the next day you wake up and you think to yourself, that's not really that exciting, newer cars. I mean, that's just boring, bland, and you don't feel anything. You don't feel any emotional attachment. You don't feel like you're actually connected to the car. It's just whatever, you get in, you get to your destination, you get out, and you forget about everything that just happened regarding to the drive, But I'm the type of person, I want to feel the drive. I want to be connected with the car, and I want to have that feedback from the car, And so I have driven quite a few 90s cars, In contrast, when we compare the emotional attachment that I had to the car when I drove a newer car compared to the emotional attachment that I had when I drove a 90s car, it's a night and day difference, Because when I drove a new car, I felt bored and disconnected. When I drove a 90s car, I felt extremely excited and I felt like a kid again. I felt, that feeling when you got back when you were younger, on Christmas Eve, and you felt excited and you just felt happy. That's the kind of feeling that I get when I drive a 90s car. Every single time. Because the way they look also, 90s cars, in my opinion, look so much cooler than newer cars. They look so much cooler than newer cars. Newer cars all look bland, boring, repetitive, and quite frankly, ugly, in my opinion. 90s cars, they have these sleek, long, flowing lines, and my God, these cars are beautiful. I've driven a 1992 Toyota Camry V6 with a 4-speed automatic torque converter transmission. And that car was amazing. And I can buy the 90s car very soon. And that car is still on sale right now. And I think that car has a pretty good chance of actually becoming mine. Because if that car is still around when I have everything set and ready and I am ready to buy the 90s car, that could actually become my 90s car. Because the car is still on sale. And, that car felt amazing. That Camry, it looked amazing. Some people think the 90s cars look bland and ugly. I think it's the complete opposite. 90s cars look amazing. Newer cars look bland and ugly, in my opinion. So I've driven the 1992 Toyota Camry. I even have the video on my channel. And, it was amazing. The car started right up. The transmission shifted like a dream. And I only got to drive it around the lot of the dealership because he did not put any license plates on. So I could only drive the car around the lot on the dealership lot, which was kind of a shame, but it was the first test drive that I ever did in my life with a 90s car, and I was so excited. I was just thankful that I got to drive a 90s car for basically the first time in my life. And I mean, I was blown away. My car right now is a 2016 Suzuki Swift. 94 horsepower, 5-speed manual transmission. That car is very boring and very bland. And it's a newer car, it's from 2016. When I drove the Camry, when I got in the Camry, I felt like I was in a different world. The seats in 90s cars are extremely soft. The suspension in 90s cars is extremely soft. The 4-speed automatic torque converter transmission, they shift very smoothly and they kind of slush the gears together. That's why they are called slush boxes, because they slush the gears together. And that's also something that I noticed when I drove my uncle's 1994 Ford Mondeo. That was a fun day, by the way, when I drove my uncle's 1994 Ford Mondeo. push the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor, kick down, you know, and it's just amazing. I mean, the way the torque converter transmission, you know, it downshifts, and then it's just, you know, the way there's something about the way they shift the 4-speed torque converters, the old ones, because they shift really smoothly and very mechanically and harshly at the same time. And it creates this kind of analog and connected feeling that you have to the car that you just don't get in newer cars, you know. And it's these little details that normal people don't pay attention to that makes these 90s cars so amazing to me. I talk specifically about automatic 90s cars because to me there's something about these old torque converter transmissions that makes these cars so amazing, you know. That does not mean that I do not appreciate a manual, but you know, I will get an automatic 90s car because the way, even if it's a 5-speed torque converter, you know, still amazing. It's something about they don't have as many gears, so they have to rev out longer, and it's amazing because the engine sounds amazing usually, and you know, you have this long gearing, you know, and then the shift point feels so mechanical, and you know, the way they shift, you know, and you don't feel any clutch engagement because the technology is completely different. When you drive a double clutch transmission, I have noticed this myself because I've driven expensive newer cars with double clutch transmissions, and you can feel the clutch engagement even in a VW DSG, you know, which are regarded to be the best, you know, double clutch transmissions. Even there you can kind of feel the clutch engagement a little bit. Even though it's quick, you can kind of feel, you know, it's not very pleasant. And in the 90s car, it does not seem to do that. It's like it gets to the shift point and then it almost sort of swallows the other gear. You know, it's like there's only this sort of light jerk that you have, but it's like it does not stop delivering the power. It's like, it's very hard to explain. It's something that you have to experience yourself, and it just feels amazing. It makes it's this analog feel, and it's amazing. I can't even explain it, and I can't explain the feeling that I get when I see a 90s car somewhere. People just don't understand. But I understand, man, I truly do. And, you know, I could go on and on and on. But I just wanted to make this video to talk about it a little bit. You know, like I said, I've driven a 1992 Toyota Camry. I've driven my uncle's 1994 Ford Mondeo. I've driven a 1998 Nissan Almera 1.8 liter, also with a 4-speed automatic torque converter transmission. I recorded that. I could upload that video as well. I might do that in the future. And pretty soon, a couple of months, I'm in a position where I can buy a 90s car with a 4-speed or a 5-speed automatic torque converter transmission. And that's what I will do very soon. And anyway, you know, my love for 90s cars will never die. And I will absolutely get a 90s car very soon. So if you also like 90s cars, welcome to the club. And I hope you have a nice day, and peace.